a religion, a conception of religion, which came in the European world, which gave to itself the name Protestantism, when it broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, and which insisted that religion was based on texts, T-E-X-T-S, and that the texts must be understood literally. This methodology of Protestant Islam, this methodology came to the Muslim world. It started with Muhammad Abdul Wahhab in Saudi Arabia, with a movement. I didn't coin the term, so don't take our boxing gloves for me. The world of Islam chose to call it the Wahhabi movement, so do not fight me over it. For how so long the whole world of Islam has been calling it the Wahhabi movement. Now you want to fight me over the word? This movement now calls itself Salafi. And I am saying to them, and they are my brothers, and I am not fighting them, I am saying to them that you have the Protestant version of Islam. And in this Protestant version of Islam, where you confine yourself to the study of text, this is your primary concern, not the nur, but the text, and that you interpret the text literally. This, you cannot understand Islamic eschatology. You will not be able to understand the world today. You will not be able to do what I just did, to say that the economic crash and the final financial crash subserve another greater whole, and that is Israel's ambition to replace the United States as the next ruling state in the world. Do the Salafis have this understanding?
Let me talk a little bit about the understanding that traditional Islam has had, and here we are talking not about a kind of newfangled Islam that trusts our own fallible, time-bound prejudices to interpret the Quran and the Hadith, but that is based on the accumulated wisdom and reflection and discussion over centuries of thousands of transformed souls. And everything I'm going to say in these sessions is based on the expectation that we recognize that the ulama know the Quran and the Sunnah better than we do. Another sign of the dispersal and confusion of the modern Muslim mentality and our initiation into the logic of multiplicity is that we are now trusting ourselves, and we say Quran and Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah, neglecting the fact that the Quran and the Sunnah always has an interpreter, and that interpreter can either be ourselves or it can be the consensus of thousands upon thousands of great transformed souls, people who know the Quran and the Sunnah outwardly and inwardly better than we ever will. So I would say that it is a form of implicit shirk to say, I'm going to bypass the tradition and go directly to the sources, Quran and Sunnah, because it is to set up one's own judgment as being superior to the judgment of all of those others, which is an absurdity. It's probably the greatest, most pernicious error in the modern ummah to say, well, 100,000 Shafi'i ulama might have come to this position, and I'm not really going to trouble myself to read all of the thousands of books through which this position was negotiated and arrived at. I'm going to say I know better. That really is a form of pharaonic arrogance. This is not a minor error, a minor slip in our understanding of how Islamic education should take place. It's a very fundamental error. It's a Protestant error, if you like. The idea that our personal consciences are so refined and so pure that we can understand the scriptures better than earlier generations, whole armies of great purified souls. It's an absurdity. It's a form of arrogance. It's also a form of backbiting to say that the ulama simply got it wrong, and that we're going to get it right. This is probably the greatest act of collective backbiting in the history of the Ummah. We should be eating the dead flesh of deceased ulama, saying that they got it wrong. They were people of taqleed, they were Ash'aris, they were Hanafis, they were whatever, and we can get it right. That's backbiting. So what I'm going to say is going to be based on the certainty that our minds are infinitely more fallible than the minds of past generations of great ulama.
Because of the fact that Ibn Taymiyyah took a position against it. He was regarded by his contemporaries to have gone against consensus in that. And I have great respect for Ibn Taymiyyah. He retracted his position on tawassul. Ibn Ata'illah, the great Maliki faqih, the great Maliki jurist and Sufi, spoke with Ibn Taymiyyah in a famous dialogue. Ibn Taymiyyah retracted his position on intermediation. He didn't retract his position on istighatha. That's his opinion. But these should not be matters of division. They should never be a basis by which one Muslim points to another and calls him a polytheist. One of the great muhaddiths, one of the great scholars of hadith in the last century, Muhammad al-Habib al-Shinqiti, he writes a lot about this in his commentary on the shared hadith of Bukhari and Muslim. And he apologizes that he does that, but he says that I had to do this because of the fact that the Wahhabi movement, that really Ibn Taymiyyah has nothing to do with the Wahabis. Ibn Taymiyyah is one of the wonders of Islamic civilization. But the Wahhabi movement, they adopted his legacy, they adopted his books. They were extremely rigid in this and ignorant as well, and they shed a lot of blood. This is a very important chapter in modern Islamic history, the way that the Wahhabis came to power in Arabia. I don't say that out of spite. I know that there are a lot of people, Salafis and others, some Saudis, a lot of Saudis, most Saudis don't like the Wahabis, most Saudis are not Wahhabis, but that chapter is a very dark chapter in our history, and it needs to be told honestly, with complete transparency. And the great scholar Yusuf ibn Ismail al-Nabahani, great judge of Lebanon, great scholar, great Sufi also, he writes about this in great detail, as do others. One of the points that he makes, he says that the Wahabis, who really were a horror, they were a terror when they came out in Arabia. They killed many innocent people. And I know this from personal stories of families that are in Arabia who were there, who were massacred and other things happened, who even if they would ask the Wahhabis to give them protection, not to kill them, and the Wahhabis would promise, they would still do it. So this is a very, very dark chapter in history. And Nabahani was asked about the Wahhabis, and he said that it's like this is the second horn of Satan, because there are many hadith in Bukhari and Muslim and elsewhere about the two qarn of shaitan, or the horn of Satan that comes out of Najd, out of the central part of Arabia. And these were believed to be the Khawarij, and then in one transmission it says the two horns. And one of the great sheikhs that Imam Hamza and I were honored to know, Sheikh Muhammad Wil Zidan, a great Mauritanian scholar, he contended that the Wahhabis are the second horn, or the second generation. And Nabahani also believed that. So they're one of the signs of the end of time. He said that they are not the greatest evil. The greatest evil are those who come after them, who are like them, but who mix their knowledge, because the Wahhabis were extremely ignorant, with other knowledges of their time. And these are the kind of movements that you have seen in the 20th century and in the 21st century as well. We pray that Allah guide us to the light and to the true tradition, to represent the faith of His Prophet. And again, as we said before, anything in order to be an article of belief that you must believe, and which if you deny, you are a disbeliever in our faith, it has to be a matter of consensus. To reject intermediation would be probably to violate consensus. But nevertheless, to introduce matters like this, which at worst are not agreed upon, and that open themselves up to interpretation and were accepted by the vast majority of Sunnis and Shia as authentic, then that is to create sectarian division and is to create great harm. And we pray that Allah give us the honest understanding of our religion, that He remove all the shubuhat,
Ameen.
all of the doubtful matters, and that He put us on the clear way. Ameen.
Ameen.
Are tropes for complete imitation. In other words, it's a turn of phrase for complete imitation. So, you can see, no offense to any brothers and sisters from Saudi Arabia, but I mean, it's just amazing that, we have in the heart of the Arabian Peninsula now, I mean, that could be a scene from LA or, and the golden arches in the background. My God, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that wasn't intentional. But I mean, this is, McDonald's. I mean, what's McDonald's doing in Arabia? What's it doing in Mecca? Did you know the golden arches, that is the first thing you see as you're coming into the city? My older brother, is not even a Muslim. He told me he almost cried the first time he saw it. He just said, don't they know the city's sacred? Bolivia is the first country where all the McDonald's had to close down just recently, finally, after years. Because McDonald's will run at losses, because they know that it's hard to get the adult generation, but the kids, they have Ronald McDonald, they have toys and everything like that. Although Ronald McDonald gives me the creeps. I mean, if I was a kid, I'd just run the other way. So Bolivia, literally, they had to shut them all down. Hooray for Bolivia. I'm serious. Yeah, bravo. Bravo. Yeah. And you know what they said, the reason? Somebody went down there to find out, he interviewed all these, they said, food is meant to be prepared with love and shared with family, and we don't want to eat that kind of food. It tastes horrible. I mean, anybody who eats real food cannot eat McDonald's. The only way you can eat McDonald's is because you've been eating processed food all your life. Once you start eating real food, you will throw up if you try to eat something from McDonald's. And I'm not exaggerating, really. I'm not making that up. So yes, I am anti-McDonald's. I'm anti-Pepsi. I'm anti-Coca-Cola. I'm anti anything that you recognize the name. I'm troubled by it. Right? I like things that are like home, I mean, we need to be cultivating. We used to have victory gardens during World War II where people were told to grow gardens in their houses. A lot of South Asian community, the grandmas will grow gardens in the backyards because that's what they do in India and Pakistan and things. Right? They grow gardens and have vegetables. They eat their own tomatoes and things. And now you've got Monsanto and all these companies that are changing the actual structures of these seeds. And then this was obviously the one that we mentioned in the beginning with the hadith of Jibreel, that you will see the Amma will talidu rabbataha, she'll give birth to her mistress. The ulama differ on what that means. Some of them mean, and this did occur during certain periods of Islam, where a concubine would be a consort of one of the rulers, and then the child that came from it would actually become a ruler. That did happen. Some of them say that's the meaning. Others say that it means that parents will be so mistreated that their children will actually treat them as if they're slaves, ordering them about. And we certainly can see that. And then also that you'll see the barefoot, hufat al-urat, ri'a al-shah, right? The barefoot, destitute herders of goats vying with one another by building increasingly taller buildings. La ilaha illallah. Sadaqa Rasulullah. In another narration, he was asked, who are these hungry, destitute people? And he said, Al-Arab. They're the Arabs. So the Prophet specifically said that the Arabs on the Arabian Peninsula are going to be vying in building taller and taller buildings. And now, after they built this building, then they announced in Saudi Arabia, we're going to do the mile high, even outdo that one. And then Qatar said, no, we're going to build the tallest one. And no, it's in Malaysia. See, Malaysia got outdone by... So everybody it used to be American Empire State Building was like this, like Lego building compared to these things. You know, and then you see it's just getting higher and higher. You know, Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, it's illegal to build over like 5 stories. Because man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah. If you stay humble, Allah will elevate you. And you know, it's a haqq ala Allah. ما ارتفع شيء في الدنيا إلا أن يضعها حق على الله. It's a right of God that nothing will get too high in this world except Allah will abase it. So it's just better to stay low, stay humble, right? And then obviously the Burj al-Sa'a in Mecca, and we'll get to a hadith about that. And then Jabal Umar, you see that where see all that there? There used to be a mountain there. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى تزول الجبال عن أماكنها. The end of time won't come until you see mountains removed from their places. And these are sacred mountains. You're not supposed to cut a tree in Mecca. And yet mountains now are removed with impunity. I mean, for me, it's one of the most troubling things. You go to Mecca, I mean, it's really sad to see that. Here's the plans, my friends. That's the plan for Mecca. You know, to get rid of the Ottoman, the last remnants of the Ottoman. There's no history. History's gone. All the mountains are going to be gone. It's going to be complete flat. It's just amazing. I mean, these are sacred mountains, you know, but... Well, I think partly one, there's no sense of the sacred amongst modern Muslims. Dr. Nasr was talking about this if you were at the conference. Muslims have lost a sense of sanctity, that the creation actually has a sanctity, that mountains have a sanctity. You can't just go and remove a mountain. Right? When كَانَتْ مَكْرُهُمْ لَا تَزُولُ مِنْهُ الْجِبَالُ, Allah says, even if their plots remove mountains, it's a negative thing to remove mountains. I mean, mountains are autad. You know, they're pillars for the earth. But I don't know. There's a Muslims don't really appreciate history anymore for some reason. I don't fully get it. Well, you know, we have people in California that if you try to cut down a 1,000-year-old redwood tree, they literally live in it for 2 years to make sure that you can't. Right? Julia Butterfly, she lived in it. You can Google her. She lived in a redwood tree for almost 2 years, so they wouldn't cut it down. So I don't know. It's only if Muslims, you know, have some sense of, you know, I mean, I've spoken to them. I mean, I've spoken to the times that I've had access to the rulers there. I've always tried to say that, you know, things need to be preserved. And it's like I would even argue not for tabarruk, but just for history. You know, even if you just cut them off, don't let people visit them, but don't just remove them. I mean, we had wells that were the Prophet drank from, that all of the through the history of Islam they were preserved. So the bid'ah, Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayy said the bid'ah is to remove them. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when he became caliph, he preserved all of the places where the Prophet ﷺ prayed. When he was governor of Medina, he went everywhere. Ibn Umar went to every single place and prayed 2 rakats where the Prophet prayed. That's the proof that the ulama use for that you can go to places where the Prophet prayed and pray 2 rakats. There's nothing wrong with that. This idea somehow that it's a bid'ah because it's not mansus, it's not wajib, but tatabbu' al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a good thing. I mean, even Ibn Umar, he used to go on his journey, he would, in Medina, there was a place where he'd move his camel. And somebody asked him, I always see you doing that. He said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ do it. And he said, there used to be a rock there. He said, I don't care. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because he did it. Whether there's a rock there or not anymore, the fact that he did it, I want to do it. And that's a school of love. You don't care as long if the beloved did it. She dyed her hair purple. I'm going to dye my hair purple. People.
Third reason why a certain type of knowledge would be blameworthy is that you study something that is so deep and you don't need it right now. So it will be for you blameworthy. Like learning the most advanced levels in every discipline before starting from the beginnings. And this is what a lot of Muslims are doing. Imagine if I, as a specialist in Arabic and Sharia, if I write a book on geometry, or if I sit amongst scientists and discuss with them medicine, and then buy a few books from Barnes and Nobles, then start writing a book, cut and paste. It's very easy. Then produce a book on medicine. So imagine, or in geometry, what would be the result? When I was in Damascus before coming here, I was doing some construction in my home. So of course, I had a friend of mine, may Allah reward him. He did a civil engineer and another architect. They both helped me sort of the planning and all the work for the construction. After working with the engineers for a while, I got to understand a lot. Then once I made 2-3 suggestions and they were right. He said, you're picking up very fast. I said, then I can write a book on civil engineering. This is what the Salafis are doing. They pick up a book, they listen to a few lectures, then they go to do the whole work on themselves to be great scholars. Consider themselves great scholars and write and do ijtihad, and they want to read the Quran and read the Sunnah and do, well, they know nothing about usul al-fiqh, nothing about the Arabic language. I know nothing about myself, math, algebra, and geometry and physics and other disciplines needed for that, for civil engineering. But you get happy because you know something.
Thinking that they can help others, so they start arguing about Islam, about Aqidah, with Wahabis, with others, and they get refuted very easily. Because these people of bid'ah are well trained. All they do throughout their life is to study and train with their own bid'ahs. I have met Wahabis who don't study Bukhari and Muslim at all. They don't know Bukhari or Muslim or Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi, Sunan or other books of hadith. They memorize 200 hadiths made up. The moment any scholar quotes a hadith that is made up, they come and say, this is mawdu', this is made up. People think they are scholars. They have never studied the books of hadith. The same also in other fields, in other domains. So don't be lured.
And looking at beautiful stories of his hilm, tolerance, and his truthfulness, and his trustworthiness, and these beautiful stories, it's beyond this. He is the tissues of our lives. He is our intercessor on the day of judgment. He is our door. Through him, we can access Al-Jannah. And without him, we can never access Al-Jannah. This is why in the past 70, 80 years, since the establishment of the Saudi royal family and the Saudi dynasty in Saudi Arabia, so-called Saudi Arabia, I have never seen any country hijacked by one family. I haven't seen any wealth concentrating in one family. If divided, it could suffice for the whole Muslim ummah. It could make every Muslim rich. And no one has done destruction to Islam through undermining the role of the Prophet ﷺ as much as the Saudi royal family has done. It's enough. It is the beginning. It should be time, and it is high time that they should go and withdraw
in their deserts and leave Mecca and Al-Madinah to Muslims, to true Muslims, to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, to the followers of the four madhabs. It's enough. We go and perform Hajj and Umrah there, and all we hear, we're mushriks, because we're visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Ummah are mushrikeen, associating other gods with Allah. What's that? Millions of Muslims, billions of Muslims around the world are kuffar because of their love for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, are mushriks because of their attachment to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They don't worship him. They don't hold him in an esteem higher than a human being, but the best of human beings. He says, Ana Sayyidu waladi Adam, I am the master of the children of Adam. It's enough. So brothers and sisters, loving Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam knows no limits. If you are short of good works, love Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah will guide you to him.
Again, with the reservation on the word aqidah, because imaniyat is what came in the book, iman is what came in the book and the sunnah. Lakin anyway, the books of aqaid now that contain all kinds of things, that was one of the source of issues and problems that we are still fighting about. Yeah, some things like, for example, what's in the book of sunnah for Abdullah ibn Ahmad al-Hanbal, that Allah Ta'ala looks like a shab amrad, a young man, clean shaved, etc. Well, that's all, that's kufr, yani, in a sense. Anthropomorphism, likening Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his creation. The difference in aqaid also had its implication on the sciences of hadith. What does that mean? Well, you all know the way we authenticate the hadith is based on the transmitters and the narrators of the hadith. And there's a science to authenticate or discard the narrators called jarh wa ta'dil, ilm al-jarh wa ta'dil. Well, unfortunately, we've used the people's sort of where they stand in matters of issues of faith to also use the science or the weapons of authentication and discarding as weapons against those people. حتى Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Imam Hajar mentions that he says, وقفت على ابن بطة على ابن بطة وقفت, I read something about Ibn Battah said, اقشعر له جلدي, that I had goosebumps from. In where basically he made a notion that Ibn Battah mentioned, he tried to change the one of the narrations, put a different line of transmitters that are authentic to substantiate a point of hadith that is rejected, supposedly alleged to Mas'ud, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to Musa and he has wool things clothed on him. Obviously this is again kufr, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is like him subhanahu wa ta'ala. ليس كمثله شيء لم يكن له كفوا أحد. That's the second thing. So he says basically Hajar is trying to say there's no need for him to sort of forge these things so he can prove a point. That's the first aspect, and that's the heaviest aspect. The second aspect or the third is contradictions. What do we mean by contradictions? Well, you see the groups all calling for the book and the sunnah. But when you come down to the beginning of the studies, it's always everything else before the book and the sunnah. By the time you're 50, maybe you'll get to the book and the sunnah if you start out at 20. You see a second sign of the groups, you see the groupings and then the group mentalities and maybe close to cult mentality sometimes, where they are warning from being who are extreme, yani excessive. I don't mean extreme now in the geopolitical or the political term. I mean extreme in their thought. So, be careful with the extreme. The Shia, the Sufis are extremes, for example. The Shias are extreme. And then you come to us also on our side, but you see us also going extreme in our shuyukh and our people and giving them lots of titles, while we're not very generous with titles on the people that we don't like. You see the groups and the grouping mentality now calling for people to be with the Jama'ah whenever they are the Jama'ah. But whenever they're not with the Jama'ah, and the Jama'ah, the majority is not with them, they say, well, praised are those who are few. We use the weapons of ijma', and I don't want to go into that because it's a little bit technical. But whenever the ijma' does not come our way, we say, no, there's no ijma'. What are you talking about? Which ijma'? Who made ijma' with who? You see also the mistake is all, like I said, even with the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, may Allah be pleased with them. We stand firmly against the Shia who denounce the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, and rightfully so. Yet when it comes to Ali ibn Abi Talib and those who cursed him in the old days, we just give him some excuses and we let it go. We don't want to talk about it. Contradictions. Yani names. Haris bin Uthman, Thawr bin Zayd, etc., etc. Fifth is the reason for our fragmentations, not only contradictions in our practices, but actually not understanding the evidence of the other. We simply don't want to listen to you. If I belong to this group, I don't want to listen to you. It doesn't matter what you're going to tell me. You can stand here and talk for half an hour, I'm not going to listen. We're not willing to listen to the evidence and the substantiation of the other. My father, rahmatullahi ta'ala, used to tell me, and that's what his shuyukh used to tell him, if you can't articulate your opponent's points as well as you can articulate your own, you haven't even started to understand. If we are on the haqq, we have nothing to worry about. Okay. Number 6 or 7, doing dhulm to those who we disagree with. Dhulm. First, what kind of dhulm? I call it intellectual terrorism. What does that mean? Someone I disagree with, regardless what they are, within our groups as Ahl-Sunnah al-Jama'ah, and then within the Muslim Ummah. We start doing intellectual terrorism to them, demonizing them. Oh, they're trying to do this. Oh, they hate Islam. Oh, they hate the Sunnah. Oh, they hate this. These people are enemies of the Sunnah, enemies of the Hadith, all these titles. No one who believes in Allah and His Prophet ﷺ is an enemy of Allah and His Prophet ﷺ. Intellectual terrorism. What does that mean? That intellectual terrorism eventually, in calling them names, you know, some of the things that are written, for example, in the book of the Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Muhammad, for example, and obviously it's not, I don't believe it's attributed authentically to the Imam Ahmad rahimahullah radiyallahu anhu, that Abu Hanifa, for example, because in the old days there used to be disagreements between the what they called the people of opinion, or the Hanafis, Abu Hanifa's school, and the people of Hadith at that time. So some of the things that were said, for example, Abu Hanifa was undoing Islam, destroying Islam knot by knot. Crazy stuff. Huh? It's okay to disagree, but it's good to have honor in our disagreements. I don't maintain that people now believe that, but they're still there. I told you the mistake is old, and oftentimes we still take our attitudes from the old mistakes. What does intellectual terrorism lead to? Physical violence. And first, you strip people from their right and their dignity. They're no longer human beings. They're there to get you. They're there to destroy the Sunnah. Wake up, do something. So now what happens is, basically that translates to physical violence. And that actually happened in the old days. We'll go back to the Seerah of Ibn Jarir, Imam Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, the Mufassir, the big Mufassir, was hit and beaten, etc., etc., etc. You all know that, and you can see that. Also, that Ibn al-Athir mentions in year 323, that many of at the time of the Barbahari, many of the Hanbalis at that time, they testified, they were bearing false witness on people just to get them in trouble, because they were from different schools. Al-Faqih al-Bawri al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, who died in 567 Hijri, they came and they gave him poisoned sweet just because he was from a different school. Al-Imam ibn Fawrak, the known one, the Mutakallim, he was more to the Ash'ari. So the people, the Karramis, or the people of the Hanbali, or closer to the Hanbali school, they came and also killed him. Things were like this, simply because now from intellectual terrorism we move to physical violence. Another reason, or 8th or 9th reason, is simply feeling free to misquote and misrepresent the other. They? Oh no. They don't do that. Just like when we talk about others, for example, the people, I don't want to mention this, I don't want to mention any groups, so I want to be broad, but they do this, so we feel no problem to go extreme in mentioning things. They worship graves. And who worships graves? Worshipping? I say they make a mistake, but worshipping is big. No, they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Big things, and that's just iftira. That's really lying. It's forgery, fabricating. That's not what they say. When you want to judge your opponent, take their own words. See what they say, and then try to do it. And then try to refute and put your question on it. But don't do that. And then another, that 10 maybe, the 10th issue, the reason or causes for our fragmentation is because not only we do that, we terrorize others. If you don't do this, you're also kafir like them. Number 11. The reasons for our fragmentation is also that we disabled self-criticism on us, but we've enabled it on everyone else. So we don't see the faults in us and the imperfections, but we have a microscope, not a telescope, a microscope on the imperfections and faults of everybody else within the Muslim Ummah. Okay? Number 11 or 12 or whatever, I don't know where I got to now. Reactionaries. What does that mean? We became reactionaries. So, what does that mean? Jahm bin Safwan, one of the people in the old days, they said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists everywhere, which is obviously a problem because everywhere is a creation. Allah is the creator of everywhere. So we went now to say, we take everything in the Quran literally, and we say this is what Allah wants from us. Reaction. The Hanafis at that time took opinions. So now we went and we tried to find, or if not find, made a hadith or things, attribute things to the Salaf radiallahu anhum to say that saying with opinion is against the Sharia, etc., etc., etc. Hatred of the Shia. So we don't like the Shia because they denounce the Sahaba. So what do? Ahlul Bayt disappearing totally. We don't even talk about them. Why? Don't talk about them. Hatta now, if you name a masjid, Ali ibn Abi Talib, they say, what is this, Shia masjid? This is the 4th Khalifa. Huh? You talk about Ahlul Bayt, oh, this is Shia. Notice? So it became reactionary. Number 13 or 14, not understanding the meaning of the words of the terms. What does Ahl Sunnah mean? Does that mean we follow the Sunnah? Or does it mean it's a geopolitical term simply because we are born in an environment we are called Sunnis? Ahl Sunnah are we? One of the Shaykh in Morocco, Shaykh Muhammad Zamzami rahimahullah, used to say many of the people who call themselves Ahl Sunnah nowadays are probably more worthy of Ahlul Bid'ah, because there's more Bid'ah in their lives than Sunnah. So they should be Ahlul Bid'ah rather than Ahl Sunnah in a sense. So even the term became vacant from its meaning. Number 14 or 15, legislating hatred amongst Muslims. I'll give you texts and page numbers. In the book of the Sunnah for al-Barbahari, one of the Salaf, he used to say, I eat with a Jew and a Christian, but I would never sit and eat with someone with a bid'ah. While Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, كل المسلم على المسلم حرام. Al-Muslim أخو المسلم. And this legislating hate, I would hate someone with a bid'ah, so I would eat with anyone, but not with him. من انتهر صاحب بدعة آمنه الله يوم الفزع الأكبر. If you humiliate a Muslim with a bid'ah, Allah will give you safety in the day of judgment. There's the book of Abdullah bin Ahmad, he says that the human being is rewarded for belittling Abu Hanifa and his people and hating them. Legislating. The reason I'm giving you these old examples because we can go back to them with a page and number. But people are doing the same things nowadays to the groups nowadays. Reasons for our fragmentation. Okay. Legislating hatred. Hate them. You should hate them because they're not like us. We are the only ones. Number 15 or another one is discouraging from going back to the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, while encouraging to go back to the opinions of the scholars. Everyone has their own group of Salaf, as I told you, and everyone goes back to that group. And they're actually quotations from the book of the Sunnah for al-Barbahari. Where he says, if you talk to people, if you hear people, you bring someone the saying of the scholar and he wants the Quran, no, leave him, stay from him. So discouraging from going back to the Quran, because everybody says the Quran, right? The Quran is the one that brings us all together. But no, we want to make sure that we want to condition the Quran. Or after that also, legislating being happy for the disasters that happen to other Muslims that we don't like. And this is against humanity to start with. It's against our human instinct to be happy for some problems that happen to other Muslims or not even non-Muslims. We are not people who feel happy for disasters or bad things that happen to non-Muslims, because we are an extension of the mercy to the universe, let alone to other Muslims. But you see that also happening. The other reason for our fragmentation is because we judge the niyyah, the intentions of others. They want to do this, that's what they want to do. No. How do you know their niyyah? I'm telling you all these things, and I'm going to finish in just a couple of minutes, inshallah. But I'm telling you all this because if we don't know the problems, we will never be able to correct them.